Hello, Green Chatters. Welcome to another episode here on the Green Living Chat podcast. As usual, I'm your host, David Ewusi-Mensah. Super excited to come your way again with this interesting episode on circular economy in the 21st century. This is an interesting episode we recorded somewhere last year in March with a team from Synertium in Canada. Marc-André is the founder and CEO of Synertium, a company dedicated to fostering positive impact organizations that drive the transition to a sustainable society and economy. He believes businesses can play a vital role in this transformation. With over 20 years of experience in business services, coaching, and project management, he values collaborative and transparent business modules that promote self-motivation and team challenges. Ilyana Leon Toro, who is also a business consultant at Synertium and project management expert with over a decade of experience, joined us also on this podcast. Ilyana specializes in leadership, strategic business development, and effective communication. She is a lawyer by training, and Ilyana has worked across several sectors from law to business development, and most recently working with Synertium. This was such an exciting episode, and I really can't wait to dive into the conversation. We talked about circular economy, what it is, the challenges that there are in the transitions that have happened in the circular economy space for businesses, industrial symbiosis, and what its role in circular economy and how it has transformed the industry. How can potential green business owners transform their ideas into businesses, and how it is to work with Synertium and so many other areas of the industry. I need to let you know that this conversation is going to be in two parts. So let's dive quickly into part one of it and stay tuned for part two of this conversation. Now, without further ado, I'll see you on the other side. Okay, great. Mark and Ilyana, thank you so much for joining me today on the Green Living Chat podcast. Really exciting to have you after several, let's say, years of working together. I think we finally have the chance to record a podcast together. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Exciting. So I will say Happy New Year. Well, it's today's March, but Happy New Year to go. And yeah, just to kick off, where are you guys calling from? Ilyana?
Well, I'm based in Dominican Republic. I'm Venezuelan though, but been here for 7 years almost.
Ah, that's something I didn't know. Really? Wow.
It is.
Okay, beautiful. And Mark?
I'm in Canada, just around Montreal in Quebec province.
Okay, so I can feel the different atmosphere and different temperatures over there. I guess in Dominican Republic, it's kind of not too warm, not too cold at this time, is it?
Well, I'd like to describe it like all year long summer, actually.
Okay.
It's kind
Okay.
of less hot and humid as we speak, but it's pretty much warm. Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, I'm not gonna ask you. It's
It was
cold.
it was summer. 2 days ago it was summer, and now it's back to winter. It went up to 15 degrees. Everything's melt because there's a huge piles of
Yeah.
snow. Everything melt. People going in shorts, doing jogging at 15 degrees Celsius 2 days ago. Now it's back to -10.
Oh,
So it's
goodness. Oh,
minus
goodness.
11 now. So it's crazy, and it damages properties because
Yeah.
when it freezes, it expands. So water
Mm-hmm.
goes everywhere,
Yeah.
and then it's wet,
Ah,
and then the ice make it expands, and it damages a lot the house. There's
yeah. Anyways, but you still have to enjoy it. Let's bring good vibes to
yes.
people that are listening. So if you're listening to this podcast, as you heard from the introduction, we are in for a treat today. Very amazing team from Synertium is here to discuss all things about circular economy and want to be very specific about, how circular economy has evolved in the 21st century. But let's get to know a little bit more about our guests and their background. just to help us understand who is speaking and what we should expect from them. So, Ilyana, what brings you happiness? I'm sure this is gonna throw you off, but I mean, in a normal day, what brings you joy and happiness?
Well, I definitely it comes to mind three things. I think the first one is going out for a run very early in the morning. That's definitely my best way to start a day. Then sharing with family and loved ones in the
Mm,
kitchen, cooking a nice meal. Definitely, that's number two. And number three, I would say taking my time to do a short meditation or a couple of breathing exercise,
mm-hmm.
calming down before going bed.
Who knew professionals have time for all these things? Mark, what about you?
Well, hey, well, there's the family aspect. I have a young daughter, so having the chance to spend time and get the drawings
Right.
of how I love you, Papa, and all of that. So that's always heartwarming to see that there's a good connection. And her progress and her energy is always something that makes me happy. And on the other side, well, feeling that I don't have the time, sometimes that's a bit of um, a downside. So getting things done for me in for the business and for the this my master role also. Every time I there's another step, everything that is being done is part of the general achievement of making time. So finding the energy to get things done. It creates time to be able to enjoy moments, family moments, and to have a clearer mindset of the next steps, next things to be done. So feeling that we're in progression, we're achieving and seeing the impacts. So that's something that brings me joy, the return on the work. And then, of course, with all of these things, is the sleeping also. So sleeping brings me joy. So it does. When I lay down in bed at the end of the day, I'm like, another good day done, and let's sleep well and have the energy tomorrow morning. But
Yeah,
it's a good moment to feel that you did what you could and you're drained positively. You put your
exactly.
energy in the right place. Yeah.
Finally, someone admitted that sleep brings him joys.
Yes.
You know, one interesting thing about our podcast here and the family and the community that we have gathered here is we have pretty much a lot of young people who are now getting into the industry listening to us. So we are always keen about, getting to know the little bit of your background, how you got to where you are right now. And Mark, I'll start with you because every time I talk to you, you have something new on your mind. You have like a new thing that you want to start, something innovative. And I wonder if you had to learn this along the way. Right now, you are the CEO of Synertium, and there's such an amazing company that has, got partners all over the globe, winning several projects all around the world, and actually really making an impact on the ground. How did you get here? Did it just start, or you just had superpower parents, or you just had this? I don't know. Where did it come from? Where can you trace all these, interesting traits from?
Hmm. Thank you for the question. I don't think I have superpowers, but I maybe I have super resilience or super the mindset of keep going on and not taking a deceptions as a final as a conclusion. I remember when I was doing archaeology. I studied anthropology and philosophy, and it was not for becoming a teacher. It was just something I said I want to give myself those tools to be able to have a critical analysis of situation and try to see what makes sense, what does not make sense. So I already that was the mindset. But when I was doing archaeology, I was in did one in Peru and one in Panama. In Panama, there was two other guys, Canadian, that came to visit one of my colleagues, and one they were like uh, a bit down because he said, I don't know what I want to do in life, and they said, you know, you don't need to know what you want to do in life. What you can, but what is first, because there's so many, it's impossible to know all the possibilities. But the one thing that you can be sure of is the things that you don't want to do. in life. So as that comes across your path, you can cross that and don't want to go in a similar direction than that. And he said, "Well, that's very good advice." I said, yes, you can have at least that kind of conviction of something that you don't want, and that guides you in the other potentially direction. So I think I was going in some kind of direction like that. And I worked in banking because I was curious about banking. And then I realized that
Mm.
most of the people in the banking industry have no finance background either. They're just there by mistake. And that's a bit worrisome about who's
Yeah.
handling your
Yeah.
financing. But that's a different that's a different question. But I worked accompanying businesses. So really, like 6 months after being working banking, I was in a job where I was lending to businesses. So I had to, I think over 8 years being there, I probably spoke with between 3 to 5 thousand businesses that I looked and tried to help them to go to the next level. And I found purpose in that, in being able to understand the situation, bringing them somewhere else as a solution to what they're trying to do. So that gave me a lot of guidance. After that, I
Mm.
worked in translation and project management.
Wow.
But in between, I worked in a language school also. So I created the department there. So I had to, at the beginning, when you're in a corporate environment, you're being told what to do a lot. It's very technical. And then you end up with a small business, a startup, and you need to take the initiative.
Yeah.
So taking the initiative is not always easy because you don't want to deceive the boss, and you want it to make sense what you're doing and find yourself there, and don't drain yourself also in what you're trying to do. So you need to find
Yeah.
a balance for that. And through the studies also, I realized that my way of thinking is not chronological. It's not in the steps of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's more organic. That I find something that, okay, this is interesting. What does it relate to? How does something go out of the other thing? And then that leads to something else. And the way I handle conversation sometimes was like that. Also, it could be confusing, or writing an essay or doing a presentation, it can get confusing, but there's a return for it, that I always try to put the attention on what can be done right now with the information with the project. So yes, it's always in a innovation
Yeah.
mindset. Sometimes I have those two little characters on top of the shoulder. Traditionally you think the angel and the devil, but in my case, there's one that says, "Yes, yes, that's super interesting. Let's do that. Let's do that." And then there's the other one that says, "When are you gonna do that? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit in what's already on the table." And it can be demanding for the other person around me, especially managing a team. And that's another aspect
Yeah.
of discipline
Yeah.
that I have to give myself, is how does it make sense to other people that they can take action on it, and feel that it fulfills a
Wow.
purpose. It's a structured. So yeah,
Wow.
having a lot of projects, but having to put the brake pedal sometimes on it. And I take a lot of notes,
Yeah.
and I write them in my agenda and just throw it back a year later, six
Mm-hmm.
months. But
Yeah.
before I know it, it pops up, like, "Oh, already?" It's already there. So
I'm gonna get back to you, Iana, very soon, but then I just have a quick follow-up. So, what would be this one thing that you would tell people in science or people in professional courses who are moving into entrepreneurship? What would be one thing, like just one advice you give to them that you have learned it the hard way?
well, follow what makes sense for you. If you do something that is not what's the direction that you want to go, or that you feel that you
Yeah.
can bring something,
Mm-hmm.
it's a distraction. It's a
Yeah.
distraction to what you can make the impact, or where you need to focus. And we have a lot of distractions. Sometimes it's advice, it's opportunity. You can have a contract that's right in front of you, but that's going to bring you in all different direction. Especially at the beginning, money is an issue. It's normal. You get job offers, you get this. People want to. It makes your life easier, and I think there's a lot that get off the road entrepreneurship, because that distraction becomes so convincing. So the first advice is getting to know what's your focus and what would be your
Yeah.
distraction to
Mm-hmm.
where you want to go.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Thanks for that. And to you, Iana, I am really interested in your background because it's very, very diverse. And I actually just got to know more that you are actually from Venezuela. I had no idea about that. And even before that, you are, Mark will attest to this, that you are one of the most hardworking person that I have seen in the world. Like you have a lot at hand, you do it well, and I have no idea how you were able to put all these things together. Your background is also really interesting. I mean, academically and also experience-wise. I wonder how you also moved into circular economy and all that. How did you get here? What triggered you into this?
Actually, we have a lot of things in common, Mark and I, when it comes to our background in terms of how we were exposed to a very diverse number of industries and businesses out there. So I'm actually an attorney at law. And then I did my master in business management. And I've been exposed to, as a business manager and also as a legal consultant, I've been exposed to a lot of industries. So it was easy for me to, let's say, jump from a business model to another and understand the way it worked. Later on in my career, I started collaborating with Mark. I believe it's going to be 2 to 3 years already, if I'm correct. So we started working together on circular economy, and it was actually the very first time I was putting together all my background and knowledge into circular economy or to circular economy purposes. And it was very, very good because Mark already had like a lot of experience and knowledge to share. And then I had all my background in project and
Yeah,
business management,
yeah,
and it all came together like I believe like a very good. I believe that we are a very good team. So yeah, it's the way it happened.
yeah. Really,
Happily.
really, really interesting. And I really enjoy working with you guys. Well, enough of the introduction, but I really wish that I could have more time to dive into this part of the conversation, but we have to dive into business. Um, Circular economy has had a lot of transitions, and circular economy is always handled together with sustainability. But now in the 21st century, there are a couple of challenges that we face. But I think before we dive into the challenges, generally when we say circular economy, what comes to your mind, Mark?
It's recognizing the value of what we build and what we consume. So it's not necessarily the material itself. It's the mindset about what's economy. It's transaction, it's purpose, it's fulfilling a need. It's not supposed to be a psychological empowerment,
Yeah,
which I think consuming an economy is a lot based on right now. So I think it's going back. We see it as an innovation model, but I think it's actually going back to taking a few steps back to see what was more of a normal economy model.
yeah,
Um, and then on the other aspect is creating new levels of transaction and new opportunities to integrate different social layers also in the economy. So
yeah,
I see it like that. The circularity that I see is not just about the material itself. It's about how it really involves the different
yeah.
layer and impacts with
So
different
you mean in
loops.
general, would you say that circular economy is sort of the backbone of sustainability, or you think it goes beyond that?
Sustainability is a tricky, sometimes a tricky word when you look at the
Yeah,
Brundtland report from 1987, which is a pillar in the perspective of what is sustainability. It's to preserve the resources for as long as possible for future generations. So you think, is that with the mindset of environmental preservation, or is it for the business that is related with the resources? And even in tourism, you say you want to protect national park, but is it for the park, or it's because you want to be able to attract tourists to go visit the park and continue the business to happen, or if you want to be able to continue extracting, being responsible, thinking in the longer run, avoiding problems of supply of the resources. So sustainability could be tricky, and sustainable for who, for what. Circular economy is part of sustainability and responsible or honest sustainability, if you want. So it's part of that. As the mechanism of an economy that is more responsible, I think it needs to integrate principles of circularity. There's a moral value on that also. There's an identity of what's the impact that the person has. So it's part of not just sustainability, but corporate social responsibility also. Because if you go back earlier, like 60 years or 100 years ago, there's always been a moral responsibility of businesses. But the first moral responsibility of businesses was to pay employees a salary so that they could fulfill their obligations, support their family. So that was the first moral, and then there was social unrest and different cases and scandals. So it brought the attention. So circular economy brings an alternative, and I think it's always been there. And maybe we'll get to that point later. Another question about the post-pandemic, but there's an aspect of hope in a new system also.
Yeah, yeah. And clearly what you're talking about, it brings up this question that actually we are dealing with right now. A lot of transitions that have happened with the industry, with people even moving from migration and stuff like that. All these things have affected how we work towards sustainability and also trying to preserve the resources that we have. So what are currently some of the prominent challenges that you see, Ilyana, in sustainability? And maybe Mark, you could add up to it later.
Yeah, well, thinking a little bit about what Mark just said, before answering your question, I would say that the circular economy, it's kind of, let's say, the resiliency to the economy.
Mhm.
That being said, to transition from the regular way to do business
Yeah,
into a circular economy concept, you have to be able to be resilient, to understand what you are generating, what's the cost effect that's coming out of your business,
mhm.
and transform it into something that it's more holistic,
Yeah,
that it keeps bringing the value that you are, but then evolve into a more holistic concept or
yeah,
value where also environmental, social, and financial aspects are enhanced.
yeah.
And that itself is the challenge, in my opinion, the biggest challenge,
Yes.
to be able to find how to move your project and your business model into that point where you can actually think of other aspects more than your traditional businesses right now, and then put it to the serve of the environmental, social, and
Yeah.
of course a financial and economical aspect. That's definitely not easy, especially when still traditional business concepts are as strong and I wouldn't say popular, but definitely leaders or most prominent in our world as it is.
Yeah.
And yes, there is a lot of circular economy initiatives going on, but I don't think it's yet to the size of
Yeah.
being the majority of our business. Yeah.
Well, when we look at the beginning of the circular economy, we would look at Walter Stahel with the Product Life Institute from Geneva in the 1970s. The idea was how to make products be used longer, so that it's not about the waste, it's not about the environment, it's about where there's loss. It's about efficiency in the production. So that was a way to drive how it fits in business productivity with the traditional model still. But then it's been picked up when you look at the Ellen MacArthur experience of sailing around the world and saying that the boat is the planet. So that the only way that she was able to survive on that trip is to reuse things as long as possible. So products need to be as efficient as possible. So it's not even an environmental reason. It's about how to keep on going with the less, and you cannot stop every time and then go and buy something and get rid, change something. So that's part of the design of the products. Of course, a consequence of that is less waste. So the narrative transformed to that as circular economy as a way to have less impact on nature. And then you can see that it generates other levels of involvement on social dynamics. But like Ilyana is saying, the mainstream of businesses when they're integrating circular, well, when they are integrating circular economy, it's more for the efficiency aspect. It's not for the social environmental impact. So I think that is a challenge to try to change the mindset and kind of reversing it to say it's not circular economy as a way to make cheaper products or cheaper sources of materials available, and then and that's how you say, oh, it's that's the good part that we did. It's how does it flips for the purpose of the economy, and some will talk about a purpose economy more than as the next step beyond the circular economy that's going to integrate more responsible practices. So I see circular economy as a way to transition towards a purpose economy also. So circularity needs to have a purpose of responsible impacts, not just to be able to build more efficiency in the manufacturing of the product itself. So challenges that we have is changing the perception of why the circular economy, changing perception about changing also the traceability of the materials. There's regulations, policies, internation that you can have one material that is, and so one matter that is available someplace, but you cannot export it to the other place where it's needed. So there's a lack of universal acceptability of the mobility of the materials and their usage. So it's one important aspect, how things are going to be used, and how they're going to measure the impact. Also, what's acceptable, the policies of what is acceptable in terms of the usage. So, mobility, usage, perception are big challenges in the transition of the industry.
Really interesting point you guys are raising and talking about transitions. I think the impact of climate change in this century has really made it very, very clear how sustainability has to speed up, how circular economy initiatives has to really be on point and not be just greenwashing or probably using the right, business models and evolving correctly to be able to sustain ourselves in this. But there's always a thing that, I mean, now in Asia, things like circular economy industrial parks are evolving over there. Something we also hear a lot now is industrial symbiosis. And but how do you strike the difference? Maybe I'll stick with you again, and Mark. When we talk about industrial symbiosis, what really comes to mind? Because I think from here we would like to build on how that is helping us in climate change mitigation.
Hmm. Well, there's obvious aspects of reusing something instead of throwing it out the garbage in the landfill. So um, it's the transport now. I think I don't know. There's an article I saw. It's like billions of dollars a year that would be saved compared to the cost of, because businesses need to pay for that for the land. And what they pay is just a fraction. They pay for the transportation, the preparing the waste, transporting it, delivering it, maybe a small fee there, but it doesn't cover at all the cost of the carbon footprint and then cleaning it up later because there's spills or whatever, and when the landfill is full. So that's a burden on the taxpayers or on any local population in terms of quality of the environment, the air that they breathe, you could say that there's a little bit of job that's done because there's people that need to manage it there, but I think it doesn't compare to all the jobs that you could be creating if materials were being used in the cycle. Uh, then that's always another transaction. That's already another level of interaction with the local population. But environmentally, yes, there's that the transport producing CO2 also. So those are more obvious. But if you look at more indirect, is how the mindset also, and that's at the end of the cycle. But then when it's about accessing the resources also.
Yeah.
So when you want to create the resources, mining, for example, is very polluting. So if you're going to recycle materials, and then recycling, I'll put it under like the brackets, because I don't consider it as much circular economy. The trick part is the linear part, like a bit what I was saying before. If you don't have the circular mindset of how it comes back in different loops, and it's just as a way to get cheap material and make it go down the same production line, and then it's wasted at the end. The take, make, waste is the same. Whether you use it from old materials or new materials, is going to have less impact because it's old materials, but you still need to transform the materials. So there's energy consumption, there's level transformation, and the uniformity of the supply chain also, or does it allow you to produce the same results about how long the product is going to last? And there's question about that. At the end, are you producing less footprint from the industrial symbiosis, or is it just a mindset, or does it just look good that you're using the waste? And I see the industrial symbiosis as a cleanup process of the wrongs of the unresponsible or irresponsible economy from before. It's a necessary process, but if in 50 years we're still focused, if industrial symbiosis is the synonym of circular economy in 50 years, there's a fail somewhere. It means that we never came out of a take, make, waste linear economy mindset.
Yeah. And actually for us to get right at this, definitely policies play a very, very important role in this. And we'll get back to it. But Ilyana, you work directly with lots of the projects that are happening in your company day to day. And I don't want us to leave the grassroots out. So I have observed that during the pandemic, lots of these grassroots companies are evolving, especially in the global south. And I'm not sure what it is, because maybe we are now realizing how important certain things were during the COVID for preservation, and probably maybe sustainability became more meaningful to us. But then how has that transition also changed, the revolution of, circular economy initiatives, maybe around the world? But I want us to focus a little bit more on the global south and how that is actually changing the industry.
Yeah, well, you know, pandemic was definitely a crisis for everyone.
Yeah.
And then there's something particular, and I think everyone agrees on these, in terms when we are going through a crisis, us as human beings start looking at options and possibilities to
Yeah.
get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, starting from that point, I think it was like the perfect combination of factors and situations that allowed us to evolve
Yeah.
and see how, with the available resources, that for a lot of people, there was a lot of scarcity at the moment. So with probably a very little available resources, we had to come up with a way to evolve and get out of that crisis. Meaning, for some companies and startups, it was waste. For other, it was definitely part of the end products that they had, and they weren't able to keep selling. So the good thing about crisis, specifically, or especially like that one, is that forces us to be creative and do something with what we have until we're able to create or generate more. So the happy consequences, circular economy project, are in a race after the pandemic, and there are lots of initiatives and also lots of governments looking down to those initiatives and improving or building from scratch lots of policies that actually promote this kind of initiative. And at every level, startup levels, of course, there are lots of startups moving toward this way, but also big ones, big companies that are looking of, first of all, how can they integrate into the circularity, but also how can they collaborate and build that symbiosis with the startups that are probably using their waste to transform it into a new product or to give it a second, third life span. So
for the Global South, I think it's circular economy is a way to reintegrate Global South populations into a world economy in a much better way than it is currently with the supply chain of creating new materials, and it's so my mind could go in different direction, but let's say it makes it the loops, different loops of circular economy, such as repair, refurbishing, using the components, creating something new, even in the industrial symbiosis. Say you take the waste from a mainstream product and convert it into something else, makes business practices of transforming the matter much, much more accessible for people with a lot less resources to start a business. You don't need to be a manufacturer, an industry. You don't need to be have $1 million to develop to set up a plant to transform materials. It can be done more on a handcraft and local level. And actually, it's a good thing that it stays on a local level for the accessibility of the materials. Like I was saying a bit earlier, one of the challenge in circular economy is you want to produce an alternative product. How can you ensure the uniformity of the quality of the product when you always have to change? Because when you're done with the waste, you're not supposed to have a forever company or partner that is producing a waste. That means it's missed the boat if it's always producing a waste and there's a revenue associated with that waste. So it keeps producing that waste so that it can sell it to another one. That's not supposed to be the model. So it means by definition, if it's circular, eventually that partner stops producing. He produces waste. You're done using the waste. That source of material is gone. So it always states it cannot never be a mold of uniform end product. There's always going to be, so it needs to be to stay at a smaller level of production. Otherwise, you cannot guarantee the the uniformity of the product, and that's a good thing. The other thing is that it gives hope because it makes economy accessible with those different loops, repair, refurbish. That can be people, they can start that with the skills that they have right away on the spot. So it gives them hope of being able to create revenue, being part of and redeveloping a local economy for Global South, and not just Global South, but everywhere. And I think because of the pandemic, it forced us to look at where did we go wrong in terms of economy and human impact on the environment and biodiversity. We look at the sources of the COVID and forces us to reject a part of the economic liberal free market and capitalism mindset that could be said we're just going in directions full speed without looking at what's the side effects of it. So we have to maybe widen a little bit and then see how others can be impacted more positively environmentally, and then it opens the lens for socially also. I think people need the hope, and sometimes when you look at hope, say, okay, what can we do? Like Ilyana was saying, what can we do with what we have? It's not desperate. It's not you're condemned. There's things that you can do, and people can put their hands in it and do something, and that makes the hope become real.
Yeah.
It's super important, I think, for
Yeah.
to work towards a better future.
Really, really interesting point. And I mean, as you are highlighting some of these challenges that comes with probably uniformity and quality of products that are coming out from this industry, I think, I mean, one of the most important institutions that really needs to be established is like companies like yours. So companies or startups that are just starting, they don't know their way out. They have a crazy idea on how to, make something really interesting to benefit their community and people around them. definitely need support on how to step by step go their way to develop their products or to develop their ideas. And definitely, you really, if you're listening, just check out the show notes into Synertium's website to just see what they're doing and how they can support you in your initiative as well. But back to you, Ilyana. I think we mentioned initially about, I think Mark has also talked a little bit more about policies and how they can sort of streamline the activities in industrial symbiosis and circular economy initiatives as well. But then we still see some of these challenges still persistent, right? We need to evolve in implementing strategies and frameworks to sort of help us to be able to integrate circular economy principles within our projects and different modules that we might sort of adapt for production or for our company's processes. Could you share a little bit more some of these insights that will help us to evolve a little bit more in terms of policies that regulate or frameworks that regulate circular economy activities?
Well, I think this will go two ways. There is the public policies stream and there is the private stream also, and both are necessary in the evolution process. So in the public stream, I would say that having the governments to look at the need of promoting circularity and circular economic projects in their communities and localities. It's something, well, first of all, I will say that all of the countries worldwide are doing something. Some of them are doing more and other less, but everybody's doing something about it. And I believe there are lots of frameworks already established in some of the most developed countries that us in the South, in the global South, are taking pieces of it and putting together to adapt it to our realities down here, right? So that's one thing. But then there's the private part, because it's not only having a policy established by our governments, but also to integrate it in our company culture, which is necessary for a successful transition. So it's very important to have the company to sit down and understand how are the processes right now and how these processes can be improved in terms of the circularity. And again, this is not only, as we've been talking during this conversation, it's not only about having cheaper products and cheaper manufacturing processes, but the social and environmental impact that we are delivering to the world.
Yeah.
If I have to list like three main things I would focus as a business owner towards these policies, I would say number one, to educate my team and communities. It's not only the people that work with me, but also the community that surrounds our companies that most probably, or in most of the cases, except for those that are fully digital and remote, but in most of the cases, communities are surrounding our plants and buildings and businesses, okay? So education, number one. Number two, to listen to our, again, teams and communities. Most of the times as a business owners and leaders, we sit in our committees and start brainstorming, and yes, a lot of good ideas and solutions come out of there. But sometimes those that are day-to-day working in the manufacturing processes, looking closer to the waste and damages we are generating, can come with the brightest ideas that probably we're not aware because we're not that close to that reality. Yeah. So it's also a way to engage with our team members and our communities to the solution. And at the end of the day, that becomes a collegiate solution, if that's a term, or a group or community solution, that why not could be also the starting point for a local business, for a startup that will help us to implement that solution, because probably I'm not able to manage the waste I generate by myself. And the third part, after educating and also integrating and listening to everybody's opinion, like doing like a focus group or opening the conversation to that, it will be commitment. It's not just having the conversation and raising the awareness, doing or educating my business and my teams, probably hiring someone that can, come and give us the theory of it. It's actually committing to an action plan. Okay, these are the findings we have. These are the ideas. What's viable, what's not, what's feasible, what's not, and let's make it happen in the short, medium, and long term. Meaning there are probably some actions that we can implement right away, and the impact might not be as positive as we expect, but it's something. And then in the medium term, we have a more ambitious and wider impact and project, and so on. Because of course, most of the times these transitions will need an investment, a financial and manpower investment, and probably not all of the companies are able to do it in a one-shot project.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we can start by doing something.
Mm-hmm.
I like the 3 points that you're bringing, Ilyana. I see it from the business perspective, the policies that the business needs to develop, and that's what we do also at Synertium, when we do the coaching for sustainable transitions, coaching, consulting about the model of the business, the structure to be more circular, the impact reporting, and the chief sustainability officer on demand is playing that role of when you need somebody to give that guidance if it cannot be done internally, because it's important to, like you mentioned, that there's a feeling of belonging, and we look at the employee mobility also, that the activities of the business matches the values of the employees, or that they find that it's a fit. And that means also giving them a place to express those values, contribute to those to the impacts also. So there needs to be policies where it involves the employees, and so they need to be aware about what is a circular economy. They need to see how their department can be more circular, how it connects to the values and impact. They need to measure it also to be able to keep trace of the progress and keep that level of that feeling of belonging and being part of something that does create the impact. Need to be able to communicate the impacts by reporting them. For the investors and stakeholders, how do you fit? How do you choose your stakeholders also that you are going to be going in circular economy direction? So it involves very often creating, one of the first step often is make a list of your stakeholders. Who's your suppliers? Who do you supply to? And make a registry of who fits within, comply with the policies that you have. So making the policies is key to be able to know you deal with who, how do they fit, how they connect with the same values. So that's all internal to the business. External to the business, as another stakeholder, there's who's going to purchase your products. Sometimes you could have even government level,
Yeah.
but they need to be, so the purchasers of what you're trying to provide as a circular product. There needs to be some kind of incentive to help them gap the cost of the alternative that you're proposing, because your alternative,
Yes.
you're not making scale economy, so you're probably not selling it as cheap as to lower your cost of production so that you can still be as competitive an alternative on the market. But there's also needs to be policies where it's encouraging the businesses to want to buy from circular economy, or to have accept those kind of models structure. When we look at circular economy, we often we look at industrial symbiosis, but when we look at repair models or rental model also, very often those are not models that are encouraged, because
Yeah.
purchasers, they don't want to have they don't want to be in a service relationship. They want to buy a product and they own it and then they dispose of it, and that's not circular. But if they were, and there's a lot of things that they could be in a rental a situation where the ownership stays in the hand of that company instead of being a supplier of a product, is a supplier of a service. And that supplier can keep the product, the maintenance of the product, repair its product, and have less and the purchaser don't have to dispose of the product after. So that's more circular. But very often the budgets are not made for that kind of mindset. They're made for acquiring a product instead of using a service. So there's policies that need to change that direction also.
Yeah, you probably might have mentioned this previously, but I want us to highlight a little bit from what I think Ilyana was saying initially, and I think Mark, you highlighted it again. My challenge is how we can develop business modules around education and creating awareness. So there are several companies that you might sort of reach out to, and they're coming up with a really interesting initiative, but I mean, how to develop business modules on how they can start their initiative by educating people about the importance of this particular product they are bringing, or probably particular process they are bringing into the system, is always a challenge. And as a startup, you are always thinking about, well, I'm going to use the first 6 months or 1 year to educate people to attract clients. But then there is no business model around this. Probably you could get a couple of grants that will help you. But then at the end, your project manager needs to be paid. You need money for transportation. You need incentives for whoever stakeholders in between. This is a big challenge. How do we get out of this? Or is it like a problem that has not been solved yet? Now hold on to that thought. In the next episode, we are going to dive into more on how potential green businesses in circular economy can find their path to transforming their ideas into businesses. Stay tuned next week for part 2 of this conversation. Thank you, Ilyana and Mark, for joining me on this particular episode. And to you, Green Chatters, look into the show notes to see more on how you can interact with us. Remember, live green.